What if I told you that the very reason you're struggling with money isn't because you don't work hard enough, aren't smart enough, or don't have the right connections, but because you've been approaching wealth from completely the wrong direction? But before we begin, please hit the like button and let me know where in the world you're watching from today. It's always fascinating seeing who's joining us from around the world. Right now, as you're watching this, millions of people are desperately trying to manifest money through visualization boards, endless affirmations, and complicated manifestation routines that take weeks or months to show any results. They're checking their bank accounts obsessively, measuring their progress like a science experiment, and wondering why the universe seems to be ignoring their requests. Has this ever happened to you? Here's what most people don't realize, and what Florence Scovel Shinn discovered over a century ago. You're not here, watching this video by accident. You didn't stumble upon this content through random browsing or algorithmic chance. Something deeper, something more intelligent than your conscious mind, led you here because part of your authentic self is absolutely exhausted, tired of waiting, tired of trying to earn what was always meant to flow to you as naturally as breathing. The traditional approach to wealth creation has it completely backwards. We've been taught to work harder, save more, invest smarter, and somewhere down the line, maybe we'll feel financially secure. But what you're about to discover might surprise you. The wealthiest people throughout history understood a secret that most financial advisors will never tell you. They knew that feeling wealthy comes first, and the money follows, not the other way around. Stay with me until the end, because what I'm about to share isn't just another manifestation technique that takes months to work. This is what I call a pattern interrupt, a fundamental shift in how you relate to money that can begin showing results in as little as 2 days. Not 2 months, not 2 weeks, but 2 actual days. You see, while everyone else is out there chasing money, competing for limited resources, and believing they have to prove their worthiness to receive abundance, you're about to learn how to become the kind of person that money flows to effortlessly, the kind of person who doesn't attract wealth through struggle and desperation, but through a quiet, unshakable knowing that they are already financially supported. This isn't about positive thinking or pretending everything is fine when your bills are piling up. This is about understanding a fundamental law of consciousness that Florence Scovel Shinn taught, that your external financial reality is nothing more than a reflection of your internal financial identity. And once you truly grasp this concept, once you feel it in your bones rather than just understanding it intellectually, everything changes. If these deeper insights about consciousness and money resonate with you, consider subscribing. Every video is designed to give you another piece of the transformation puzzle. This isn't entertainment, it's practical wisdom for people ready to change their lives. What you're about to learn will challenge everything you've been told about money, success, and what it takes to create lasting wealth. Because the truth is, the answer isn't in doing more, it's in becoming more. And this transformation starts with a revelation that most people find almost impossible to accept at first. Wealth doesn't come to you through chance encounters, lucky breaks, or even through grinding harder than everyone else. It comes through assumption, the simple but profound act of assuming that abundance already belongs to you. Think about this for a moment. Every wealthy person you've ever observed carries themselves with a certain energy, don't they? They don't walk into rooms hoping someone will give them money. They don't speak about opportunities like they're desperate to catch them before they disappear. There's something fundamentally different about their relationship with money, and it's not because they have more of it. It's because they feel like they deserve it, expect it, and treat it like an old friend rather than a distant stranger. This is the hidden truth behind every rags to riches story you've ever heard. Before the money showed up in their bank accounts, it showed up in their identity. Before they could receive wealth externally, they had to accept it internally. They stopped chasing and started assuming. They stopped begging and started becoming. Now, I want to go even deeper into this revelation, because what I'm about to share will probably challenge some beliefs you've held your entire life. The only thing, and I mean the only thing, keeping wealth at a distance from you right now is your current emotional relationship with money. Not your education level, not your family background, not the economy, not your age or circumstances. It's how you feel when you think about money. Most people carry around this invisible emotional barrier without even realizing it. They feel guilty when they spend, anxious when they don't have enough, and somehow unworthy of receiving more than they currently have. They've been conditioned to believe that money is scarce, that rich people are somehow different from them, and that wealth requires sacrifice, luck, or some special talent they don't possess. But here's what changes everything. Your feelings create your reality, not the other way around. The moment you shift from feeling like someone who struggles with money to someone who naturally receives it, your external world begins reorganizing itself to match that new internal reality. This isn't wishful thinking or spiritual bypassing. This is how consciousness works. This is how life responds to the signal you're broadcasting every single day through your emotions, expectations, and assumptions. The most successful people understand this intuitively. They don't wait for money to show up before they feel wealthy. They feel wealthy first, and then money has no choice but to follow. They don't hope for opportunities, they expect them. They don't wonder if they deserve abundance. They know they do. And this knowing, this assumption, becomes the invisible force that draws wealth toward them like a magnet. What's fascinating is that this transformation can happen incredibly quickly once you understand the mechanics behind it. We're not talking about years of therapy or decades of personal development work. We're talking about a fundamental shift in identity that can occur in a matter of days when you know exactly how to access it. If this is resonating with something you've always sensed but never quite understood, write in the comments, "I'm ready for this shift." Because when this shift happens, when you truly understand what Florence Scovel Shinn discovered over a century ago, everything changes. She spent her life studying the mechanics behind this phenomenon and came to one revolutionary conclusion. Feeling is the secret. Not the endless repetition of affirmations, not the struggle to visualize perfectly, not the effort to force circumstances to bend to your will. Simply feeling. Your dominant emotional state, the way you feel most of the time when you're not thinking about it, becomes the invisible blueprint that your world must follow. This isn't some mystical concept or spiritual theory. This is universal law operating as predictably as gravity. When you consistently feel wealthy on the inside, your external world has no choice but to reorganize itself to match that internal reality. But here's where most people get it completely wrong, and this might be the most important revelation in this entire conversation. They do absolutely everything except actually feel rich. They create vision boards filled with luxury cars and dream homes. They write manifestation scripts describing their ideal financial future. They speak about abundance and prosperity with their friends. They meditate, they visualize, they follow every technique they can find online. Yet the moment they finish their manifestation practice, they immediately check their bank balance to see if anything has changed. They open bills with anxiety. They calculate how much money they need before they can feel secure. They measure their progress like scientists monitoring an experiment, waiting for external proof before they allow themselves to feel any different internally. This approach is backwards, and it's exactly why so many people feel frustrated with manifestation work. They're trying to use feeling as a reward for getting results, when feeling is actually the cause that creates the results. They're waiting for their circumstances to improve before they feel wealthy, when the only way circumstances can improve is if they feel wealthy first. It's like trying to get warm by waiting for the thermometer to show a higher temperature instead of turning up the heat. The external measurement is just reflecting the internal condition, not creating it. Your bank account, your income, your financial circumstances. These are all just thermometers showing you what temperature you've been broadcasting through your emotions and assumptions. The real transformation happens the moment you stop treating feeling wealthy like something you'll do once you have more money and start treating it like the very thing that will bring more money to you. This requires a complete reversal of how most people think about cause and effect. It requires you to lead with your internal state rather than being dragged around by your external circumstances. This mindset shift separates those who create lasting wealth from those who struggle financially their entire lives. The wealthy understand consciously or unconsciously that they must feel successful before they become successful. They must feel abundant before abundance shows up. They must embody the energy of receiving before they can actually receive. Now, let me share exactly how this works in practice, because understanding the mechanics behind this process will change how you approach money forever. Write in the comments, "I'm leading with feeling now." When you truly understand this process, you realize we're dealing with what I call the wealth paradox, the counterintuitive truth that completely flips conventional financial wisdom on its head. You cannot wait to feel wealthy. You cannot postpone that feeling until your bank account reaches a certain number, or until you land that dream job, or until your business takes off. You must feel wealthy first, and then allow the numbers to catch up to that internal reality. This reversal of typical thinking is precisely what makes rapid manifestation possible. Most people spend their entire lives in this endless waiting cycle. They'll feel secure when they have enough saved. They'll feel abundant when they earn more. They'll feel worthy of wealth when they achieve some external milestone. But this approach keeps them perpetually stuck in the energy of not having, of lacking, of needing something outside themselves to feel complete. The breakthrough happens when you flip this equation entirely. Instead of trying to attract money by constantly monitoring your financial situation, checking your balance, calculating your net worth, and measuring your progress, you start embodying the version of yourself who already possesses wealth. You begin moving through the world as someone who naturally and effortlessly receives money. If this shifted something in your perspective, A-like helps this message reach others ready for the same awakening. It's a simple way to ensure these insights find people who need them most. This wealthy version of you doesn't watch their bank account obsessively because they trust that money flows to them consistently. They don't stress about every expenditure because they know more is always coming. They don't speak about money from a place of desperation or need because abundance feels normal to them, expected, natural. Think about someone you know who seems to effortlessly attract opportunities and financial success. Notice how they carry themselves, how they speak, how they make decisions. There's a quiet confidence there, an assumption that things will work out in their favor. They're not performing or pretending. They genuinely expect good things to happen because that's become their default internal setting. This is the energy you want to cultivate. But here's the crucial part. You don't wait until you have their bank balance to adopt their energy. You adopt their energy first, and then your bank balance begins moving in their direction. You start making decisions from abundance rather than scarcity. You begin expecting opportunities rather than hoping for them. You treat money like a welcome guest rather than a stranger you're desperately trying to impress. The transformation happens at the identity level, not just the behavioral level. You're not trying to act wealthy while still feeling poor inside. You're actually becoming the person who naturally receives wealth. This isn't about fake it till you make it. This is about recognizing that the wealthy version of you already exists and choosing to step into that identity right now, regardless of your current circumstances. Now, let me show you exactly how to make this shift practically, because this is where theory meets reality and real change begins to happen. Write in the comments, "I am becoming this version now." The beauty of this approach is that you don't need months or years to see results. 2 days. That's all the time required to create a fundamental shift that can completely alter your financial trajectory. 2 days is sufficient because that's exactly how long it takes to stop the energy leaks that have been draining your manifestation power, to stop questioning timelines and start trusting the process, and to assume your new wealthy identity so clearly and consistently that the world has no choice but to reflect this change back to you. Most people vastly underestimate how quickly consciousness can shift when you know exactly what you're doing. They think transformation is this long, arduous journey that requires years of personal development work, therapy, and gradual progress. But the truth is, identity can change in an instant when you make a definitive decision and stick with it completely. During these 2 days, you'll witness something remarkable. Unexpected wealth begins showing up in the most surprising ways. It rarely arrives exactly how you think it will. Instead of the dramatic lottery win or sudden inheritance most people fantasize about, it shows up as a refund you forgot about, a deposit that appears in your account from a source you didn't expect, a new opportunity that lands in your inbox seemingly out of nowhere. You might receive an email that changes everything, a job offer, a business proposal, someone offering to pay you for skills you didn't even realize were valuable. Sometimes it's as simple as a stranger offering to cover your coffee, or finding money you had forgotten about, or discovering you qualified for a tax credit you knew nothing about. The universe is incredibly creative in how it delivers what you're asking for. And once you stop trying to control the how and start focusing purely on the feeling of already having it, you open yourself up to infinite possibilities. You stop limiting the channels through which abundance can flow to you. This is why the 2-day time frame is so powerful. It's long enough to establish the new feeling as your dominant state, but short enough that your logical mind doesn't have time to build up resistance or start questioning whether it's really working. You bypass all the mental chatter and doubt that typically sabotages manifestation efforts. During this crucial window, every decision you make, every thought you think, every emotion you feel is either reinforcing your new wealthy identity or pulling you back toward your old financial patterns. The key is maintaining such unwavering focus on feeling wealthy that there's simply no room for the old energy to take hold. What's fascinating is watching how quickly your external world begins responding to this internal shift. Opportunities that were always there but invisible to your previous mindset suddenly become obvious. People start treating you differently, almost as if they can sense something has changed about you. Now let me guide you through the exact process that makes this 2-day transformation possible, because understanding the specific mechanics will give you the confidence to commit fully to this journey. Write in the comments, "I'm ready for my 2-day shift." The process itself is surprisingly simple, which is why so many people initially dismiss it. Your sole responsibility during this transformation is to generate the feeling of wealth before any external evidence appears. That's it. Not the visualizing, not the planning, not the strategizing about how it will happen, just the feeling. The manifestation follows the internal state, not the other way around. This is where most people struggle, because we've been conditioned to believe that feelings should be reactions to circumstances rather than the creators of circumstances. But in the realm of consciousness, feeling is the primary creative force. When you consistently feel wealthy, you're literally broadcasting a signal that attracts wealth-building opportunities, people, and situations into your experience. The most powerful tool in this entire process is also the simplest. 3 words that can completely restructure your relationship with money when you truly embrace them. It's already mine. This isn't just a positive affirmation you repeat mindlessly. When genuinely felt and believed at the deepest level, this statement begins to carve new reality into existence. Think about the profound shift that happens when you move from "I want money" to "it's already mine." The first statement carries the energy of lack, of not having, of being separate from what you desire. The second statement carries the energy of ownership, of completion, of already being connected to your wealth. This isn't self-deception or denial of your current circumstances. This is recognition of a deeper truth about how manifestation actually works. When you say, "It's already mine," and mean it completely, you're not trying to convince the universe to give you something. You're acknowledging that the wealth already exists in your future timeline, and you're simply aligning your current energy with that inevitable reality. You're claiming what was always meant to be yours. The transformation happens because this statement forces you to embody a completely different identity. Someone who says, "It's already mine," and believes it moves through the world differently than someone who's hoping, wishing, and waiting for money to show up. They make different decisions. They carry different energy. They expect different outcomes. This fundamental shift in your internal dialogue creates what I call a reality anchor, a fixed point of certainty that your subconscious mind can organize around. Instead of sending mixed signals about your financial future, you're broadcasting one clear, consistent message. Wealth belongs to me. Wealth flows to me. Wealth is already mine. What makes this approach so effective is that you're not fighting against your current circumstances or trying to pretend they don't exist. You're simply choosing to identify more strongly with your wealthy future self than with your current financial situation. You're making your desired reality more real in your consciousness than your present reality. Now let me show you exactly how to implement this on day one, because the way you end tonight will determine how tomorrow begins. Write in the comments, "It's already mine." Day one is beautifully simple, which is exactly what makes it so powerful. You don't need 20 different steps, perfectly crafted visualization scripts, or hours of complicated manifestation work. Tonight, before you fall asleep, you have just one job. Feel as if the money has already arrived. That's it. No elaborate rituals, no specific words you must say, no perfect mental movie you need to create. Just the genuine feeling of financial relief, security, and abundance. The reason this works so effectively lies in understanding the most powerful manifestation tool you possess, the transition between wakefulness and sleep. This twilight state serves as your direct gateway to the subconscious mind, the part of you that actually creates your reality behind the scenes. During these precious moments, your body naturally relaxes, your conscious mind begins to fade, and your subconscious becomes incredibly impressionable. For those serious about applying these principles rather than just collecting information, subscribing ensures you get the insights that could be your exact breakthrough moment. It's about building a community committed to real transformation. Florence Scovel Shinn discovered that this drowsy state is when your mind is most receptive to new programming. Your analytical, doubting, questioning mind steps aside, and whatever you impress upon your consciousness during this window becomes accepted as truth by your subconscious. This is why your last thoughts before sleep are so crucial. They're literally becoming the instructions your subconscious will work with throughout the night and into tomorrow. Most people completely waste this opportunity. They fall asleep, worrying about bills, replaying stressful conversations, or running through their endless to-do lists. They're programming their subconscious with anxiety, lack, and overwhelm, then wondering why they wake up feeling stressed and continue attracting more situations that match those feelings. But tonight, you're going to do something completely different. As you lie in bed, instead of letting your mind drift toward financial concerns or daily stresses, you're going to gently guide your consciousness toward the feeling of already having received the money you desire, not hoping for it, not visualizing how it might come, not wondering when it will happen, simply feeling the relief and satisfaction of it already being yours. This isn't about forcing anything or creating some elaborate mental scenario. It's about accessing that deep sense of peace that comes when you know you're financially supported. Maybe you imagine briefly checking your account and feeling that warm satisfaction. Maybe you simply breathe into the feeling of not having to worry about money anymore. Maybe you sense the quiet confidence that comes from knowing more opportunities are always flowing your way. The key is making this feeling the last impression your conscious mind gives to your subconscious before you drift off to sleep. You're essentially giving your subconscious mind new instructions about what your reality should look like, and it will begin working immediately to manifest circumstances that match this new programming. Now let me walk you through exactly what this feels like in practice, because the more real I can make this for you right now, the easier it will be to access tonight. Write in the comments, "I'm programming my subconscious tonight." Picture yourself tonight, lying in bed, lights off, that familiar quiet settling around you. This is the moment Florence Scovel Shinn identified as the gateway to the subconscious. Not just a metaphor, but an actual neurological state where your brainwaves shift and your mind becomes incredibly receptive to new information. Whatever feeling you impress upon your consciousness during these twilight moments literally becomes the instruction manual your subconscious uses to construct tomorrow's reality. Instead of letting your mind automatically drift toward those familiar concerns, the bills sitting on your kitchen counter, the credit card balance, the rent due next week, you're going to make a conscious decision to redirect your final thoughts toward wealth. This isn't about denial or pretending your current situation doesn't exist. This is about choosing which reality you want your subconscious to focus on creating. As you feel yourself getting drowsy, gently imagine what it's like to be completely financially covered and supported. Not just having enough money, but feeling that deep sense of security that comes from knowing you're always taken care of. This might feel unfamiliar at first, especially if you've spent years falling asleep worried about money. But stay with it. What would it feel like if every financial concern you currently have was already resolved? How would your breathing change? Would your shoulders relax in a way they haven't in months? Would there be a softness in your chest where tension usually lives? This is the feeling you want to sink into as sleep takes you. You might imagine briefly opening your phone and seeing a number in your account that makes you smile. Or perhaps receiving a text message that says, "I just sent you something." Maybe you picture yourself paying bills with complete ease or making a purchase without that familiar flutter of anxiety. But don't get caught up in the specific scenarios. It's the feeling underneath these images that matters. The transformation happens when this feeling of being financially supported becomes more familiar to your nervous system than the feeling of financial stress. When your subconscious mind starts to accept abundance as your normal state rather than an exception you're hoping for. What's remarkable is how quickly your external world begins responding to this internal shift. Your subconscious doesn't distinguish between what you've imagined with deep feeling and what you've experienced in physical reality. If you fall asleep feeling genuinely wealthy, your subconscious begins immediately working to create circumstances that match that feeling. This is the hidden mechanism behind every overnight success story you've ever heard. The breakthrough didn't actually happen overnight. It happened the moment someone shifted their internal state so completely that reality had no choice but to catch up. Now, let me show you exactly what to expect when you wake up tomorrow, because day 2 brings its own unique challenges and opportunities. Write in the comments, "I choose wealth as my final thought tonight." When you're lying there tonight, accessing this feeling of financial security, there's a crucial distinction that will determine whether this works or not. You cannot approach this like you're watching a movie of your wealthy life from the outside. You must fully enter the scene, step completely into the experience, and feel it from the inside out. Most people make the mistake of visualizing their desired reality like they're observing someone else's life. They picture themselves having money, but they remain emotionally distant from the experience. This creates no real change because They're still operating from their current identity while simply watching their future self. When you like this video, you're supporting the spread of practical wisdom that actually changes lives. If this gave you value, that like helps it reach others searching for these same answers. Instead, you need to inhabit that wealthy version of you completely. Feel what would actually change in your chest when you know money is flowing to you consistently. Notice how your breathing would naturally shift when you're not carrying the weight of financial stress. Sense how you would loosen your grip on life's struggles when you trust that you're always supported. This is about embodying the physiological changes that come with feeling wealthy. When you're truly financially secure, your nervous system is in a completely different state. Your shoulders don't carry the same tension. Your jaw isn't clenched from worry. Your breathing is deeper, more relaxed. Your entire body language shifts because you're not bracing against life anymore. This level of immersion is what activates the assumption principle that Florence Scovel Shinn spent her life teaching. She discovered that your assumption, though it may seem completely false in the beginning, if persisted in, will eventually harden into fact. This isn't wishful thinking or positive psychology. This is how consciousness actually creates reality. You're not lying there hoping money will come or waiting for circumstances to improve. You're actively becoming wealthy right now, in this moment, through the power of assumption. You're choosing to identify so completely with your wealthy future self that your current financial situation becomes temporary and irrelevant. This is where most people struggle because it requires a level of commitment that feels almost reckless to the logical mind. Your rational brain will protest, telling you this is unrealistic, that you can't just assume wealth when your bank account says otherwise. But this resistance is exactly what you must move through to access real transformation. The assumption becomes fact because you start making decisions from that wealthy identity. You begin expecting opportunities instead of problems. You carry yourself differently, speak differently, think differently. Your energy shifts so fundamentally that you actually become a different person, one who naturally attracts wealth. Now let me prepare you for what happens when you wake up tomorrow morning, because this is where the real test begins and where most people either break through or fall back into old patterns. Write in the comments, "I am becoming wealthy right now." The most important shift happens in those final moments before sleep takes you completely. You're not drifting off as someone who's asking the universe for a miracle, pleading for circumstances to change, or hoping tomorrow will be different. You're falling asleep as someone who has already received everything they were asking for. This distinction is everything. When your subconscious mind accepts this new identity, the identity of someone who is already wealthy, external reality has no choice but to begin organizing itself around this new truth. Your subconscious doesn't argue with what you've impressed upon it during that gateway state. It simply begins the work of making your external world match your internal assumption. But here's where the real transformation begins, and it's also where most people either break through or fall back into old patterns. You wake up the next morning and immediately, everything in you wants to return to those familiar checking habits. Your hand reaches for your phone to see if anything has changed overnight. Your mind starts calculating whether that deposit came through. Your first instinct is to look for evidence that your new assumption is working. This is the critical moment that determines everything. You must resist this urge completely, not because checking your account is wrong, but because you're no longer the version of yourself who needs external evidence to feel secure. The old you checked bank balances, measured progress, and waited for proof before feeling wealthy. But that person doesn't exist anymore. You've undergone a fundamental identity shift during the night. The person who went to sleep feeling financially supported is not the same person who wakes up the next morning. Your consciousness has been reprogrammed with new instructions, new expectations, new assumptions about what's possible and what's normal for you. This is where the hidden mechanics of transformation become visible. Most people think change happens gradually, that you slowly build new habits and mindsets over time. But real transformation happens through decisive moments where you choose to embody a completely different identity and refuse to go back to who you were before. Day 2 becomes a test of your commitment to this new version of yourself. Every time you want to check your balance, every time doubt creeps in, every time your old self whispers that nothing has really changed, these are opportunities to strengthen your new identity by choosing the wealthy response instead of the old fearful reaction. The wealthy version of you doesn't frantically check accounts because they trust that money flows consistently. They don't need constant confirmation because abundance feels normal to them. They move through their day with quiet confidence, expecting good things, speaking from a place of security rather than need. Now, I want to show you exactly what this looks like in practice, because understanding how to maintain this new identity throughout day 2 will determine whether your transformation becomes permanent or temporary. Write in the comments, "I am choosing my new identity." The work of day 2 becomes about loyalty, not to positive thinking or perfect manifestation techniques, but to the identity of someone for whom wealth is already done. You don't need to maintain some superhuman level of positive vibration from morning until night. You don't need to be in a perfect manifestation state every single moment. What you need is the commitment to keep returning to that wealthy feeling whenever you notice yourself slipping back into old patterns. This is where transformation becomes practical rather than theoretical. Throughout your day, you'll have dozens of opportunities to either reinforce your new identity or slide back into the old one. The wealthy version of you moves through the world completely differently than the version who's struggling with money. And these differences are observable, tangible, real. Watch someone who feels genuinely wealthy. Not someone trying to appear wealthy, but someone who actually feels abundant and secure. They don't rush through conversations because they're not anxious about getting to the next thing. They don't grasp at opportunities because they trust that more are always coming. There's a quiet confidence in how they carry themselves, a relaxed certainty that life is working in their favor. When they spend money, even on small things, there's no guilt or internal calculation happening. They're not mentally reviewing their bank balance or wondering if they can afford something. They breathe deeper because their nervous system isn't constantly activated by financial stress. They make genuine eye contact because they're not distracted by internal worry about money. This version of you feels relaxed rather than desperate, curious rather than controlling, open rather than grasping. They speak about future plans with enthusiasm rather than anxiety. They listen to opportunities instead of immediately calculating whether they can afford to take advantage of them. They treat money like a welcome friend rather than a scarce resource they need to hoard or chase. The key is recognizing that these aren't behaviors you perform. These are natural expressions of feeling wealthy. When you genuinely feel financially supported, your body language automatically shifts, your energy changes. Your decisions come from a different place. You're not trying to act wealthy, you're simply allowing the wealthy feeling to express itself through how you move through your day. Every small choice becomes a declaration of your new identity. How you order your coffee, how you respond to emails, how you walk into rooms, how you think about the rest of your week. Each moment is either strengthening your wealthy identity or pulling you back toward the old patterns of lack and worry. Now, let me show you exactly what happens when doubt inevitably shows up, because this is where most people either break through completely or convince themselves the process isn't working. Write in the comments, "I am expressing wealth through my energy." When you're buying that morning coffee, there's a micro moment of choice happening that most people completely miss. The old version of you might hesitate, mentally calculate the cost, or feel a small flutter of guilt about spending money on something non-essential. But the wealthy version of you? They order with easy confidence, Not because they're being reckless, but because they genuinely expect money to keep flowing in to replace what flows out. These seemingly insignificant moments are actually profound declarations of identity. When you check your email, are you hoping desperately for some financial opportunity, or are you calmly expecting that good things find you regularly? When you think about your upcoming week, does anxiety creep in about how you'll handle expenses, or do you feel that quiet assurance that everything will work out perfectly? Each of these micro decisions is either reinforcing your new wealthy identity or pulling you back toward the old patterns of scarcity. The transformation happens through accumulating these small choices, these tiny declarations that say, "I already have it," without you ever needing to speak the words aloud. This is exactly what Florence Scovel Shinn meant when she spoke about assuming the feeling of the wish fulfilled and living in the end result. She wasn't talking about pretending or positive thinking. She was describing a complete shift in how you relate to time itself. Instead of living in the present reality of not having enough and hoping that someday in the future you'll feel wealthy, you begin living as if the wealthy future is already your present reality. You don't wait for the world to catch up to your new assumption. You don't hold back your wealthy energy until you see the numbers in your account. You move as if wealth is already accomplished, already done, already flowing. This reversal of typical thinking is what creates rapid manifestation because you're no longer sending mixed signals about what you expect. Most people live in what I call the waiting room of manifestation. They do their techniques, they visualize, they affirm, and then they wait to see if it worked. They hold their wealthy energy hostage until they get proof. But living in the end means you've already left the waiting room. You've decided that wealth is done, and now you're simply allowing your external reality to reflect this internal knowing. This shift in time orientation changes everything about how you operate. You make decisions from the place of already having wealth rather than from the place of trying to get wealth. You speak about opportunities from abundance rather than desperation. You plan your future from security rather than fear. The impact of this approach becomes visible almost immediately because you're no longer energetically chasing or grasping. You've settled into the quiet confidence that comes from knowing your wealth is assured, even before it shows up physically. Now, I need to prepare you for what happens when your logical mind fights back against this new reality, because this internal resistance is where most people either break through completely or give up entirely. Write in the comments, "I am living in the end result now." The inevitable moment arrives when doubt creeps back in, and this is precisely where your transformation either solidifies or crumbles. Your logical mind, which has been quietly observing this whole process, suddenly speaks up with its familiar voice of reason. "This is ridiculous," it whispers. "Nothing has actually changed. You're just pretending." This internal resistance is not a sign that the process isn't working. It's actually proof that real change is happening because your old identity is fighting to survive. What separates those who break through completely from those who give up is not the absence of doubt, but how they respond when doubt appears. You don't panic when these thoughts arise. You don't assume you've done something wrong or that you need to start the entire process over. Instead, you simply pause, take a conscious breath, and gently return to the wealthy feeling you've been cultivating. This response pattern becomes your new superpower, not perfection, not the ability to maintain constant positive thoughts, but the simple practice of returning to your wealthy identity again and again. Each time you choose the wealthy response over the fearful reaction, you're literally rewiring your nervous system and strengthening the neural pathways that support abundance. What most people don't realize is that identity transformation happens through the accumulation of small moments, not through dramatic revelations or life-changing events. It's choosing peace over panic when an unexpected expense appears. It's saying thank you before the money actually arrives, as if you're already receiving it. It's walking just a little slower because you're not rushing toward the next thing out of anxiety. These micro adjustments in how you move through the world are incredibly powerful because they're training your body and nervous system to operate from a completely different baseline. When you stand a little taller, you're not just changing your posture, you're embodying the confidence that comes with feeling supported. When you smile from a place of inner security rather than forcing positivity, people can sense the difference immediately. Your energy begins broadcasting something completely new, instead of the subtle desperation or worry that most people carry around. Money, you start emanating the quiet assurance of someone who knows they're taken care of. This energetic shift is what actually attracts opportunities, because people are naturally drawn to those who feel genuinely secure and abundant. The transformation happens one small decision at a time, one conscious breath at a time, one moment of choosing the wealthy response over the old fearful pattern. You're literally becoming a different person through these seemingly insignificant choices, and your external world has no choice but to begin reflecting this internal change. Now, let me show you what to do when day 3 arrives and you still haven't seen the dramatic external changes you were expecting, because this is the moment that separates temporary inspiration from permanent transformation. Write in the comments, "I am choosing wealth in small moments." The point where real transformation becomes undeniable happens when your energy shifts so completely that everyone around you can sense something has changed, even if they can't quite put their finger on what it is. You begin walking like you've been personally chosen by life for success. You speak like you've already been paid for value you haven't even delivered yet. You expect opportunities and good news like someone who's been receiving them consistently for years. This energy transformation is where the magic really happens, because it creates change in your external world before any external proof appears. People start treating you differently without knowing why. Opportunities begin finding you through seemingly random conversations. Doors open that were previously invisible. Your phone starts ringing with possibilities that feel almost too perfectly timed to be coincidental. But here's what I need to prepare you for, because this is where most people either break through completely or convince themselves the entire process was a waste of time. For some of you, after 2 full days of this practice, nothing dramatic will have shown up yet. No sudden windfall, no unexpected check, no life-changing email. And this is precisely the moment where most people wrongly conclude that the method has failed them. What they don't understand is that the desire has already arrived. It's just arrived internally first, exactly as it should. The moment you began feeling wealthy, the moment you started assuming abundance was yours, the moment you shifted your identity to someone who naturally receives. Money, the manifestation process, began working perfectly. But sometimes the external reflection takes a little longer to catch up to the internal reality. This delay isn't a sign of failure. It's actually the final test of your commitment to your new identity. It's life asking you, are you really this new person, or were you just playing a role for a couple of days? Will you maintain this wealthy energy even when you don't see immediate proof, or will you abandon ship at the first sign of doubt? The people who create lasting wealth understand that this phase is part of the process, not a deviation from it. They know that internal transformation always precedes external manifestation, and sometimes there's a gap between the two that requires unwavering faith in what they've started. This is where your new identity gets tested under real-world conditions. When day 3 arrives and your bank account looks the same, when no miraculous opportunities have landed in your inbox, when everything appears exactly as it was before you started, this is when you prove to yourself and to the universe that you're serious about this transformation. The wealthy version of you doesn't panic when results don't show up on your preferred timeline. They don't interpret a delay as a denial. They understand that their job is to maintain the feeling of wealth regardless of current appearances. trusting that reality is reorganizing itself behind the scenes to match their new internal state. Now, let me show you exactly how to navigate this crucial phase, because how you handle the gap between internal transformation and external manifestation will determine whether this becomes a permanent shift or just another technique you tried once. Write in the comments, "I trust the process completely." When day 3 arrives and your external world looks exactly the same as it did before you started this journey, you've officially entered what Florence Scovel Shinn identified as the test of appearances. This isn't a punishment or a sign that you've done something wrong. It's actually the final and most crucial challenge to your new assumption about wealth. It's the moment when your transformation either becomes permanent or dissolves back into old patterns. This test is designed to reveal whether you've truly shifted your identity or whether you were simply trying on a new belief system for a few days. The appearances around you, the same bank balance, the unchanged circumstances, the lack of dramatic external proof, are asking you one fundamental question: will you remain loyal to your wealthy identity even when there's no evidence to support it? Florence Scovel Shinn understood this phenomenon deeply, which is why she taught her students to never judge by appearances, but instead to persist in the assumption that their desires are already fulfilled. This isn't about denial or pretending your current situation doesn't exist. This is about recognizing that external appearances are always lagging behind internal transformation, and your job is to hold steady during that gap. What unwavering faith actually looks like in practice is continuing to feel wealthy, continuing to make decisions from abundance, continuing to expect good things, even when your logical mind is presenting you with evidence that nothing has changed. It's maintaining your new identity not because you see proof, but because you've decided this is who you are now, regardless of what the mirror of reality is currently reflecting. Most people abandon their transformation at this exact moment because they've been conditioned to believe that if something is working, they should see immediate results. But consciousness doesn't operate on the same timeline as instant gratification. Internal shifts often take time to reorganize external circumstances, especially when those circumstances involve other people, complex systems, or long-established patterns. The hidden truth behind every lasting transformation is that there's always a period where you must choose your new identity over current evidence. This is where real faith develops. Not faith in some external force, but faith in your own power to create reality through assumption and feeling. Your wealthy identity is being tested under fire right now. Can you walk with the same confidence when your account balance hasn't changed? Can you speak with the same assurance when no opportunities have materialized? Yet, can you maintain that quiet inner knowing when everything around you looks exactly the same? This persistence in the face of unchanged appearances is what separates temporary inspiration from permanent transformation. It's what determines whether you'll look back on this as another technique you tried, or as the moment your entire relationship with money changed forever. Now, I want to show you exactly what's happening behind the scenes during this crucial period, because understanding the invisible mechanics of manifestation will give you the strength to persist when everything looks the same. Write in the comments, "I persist regardless of appearances." What's really happening during this crucial period is something most people completely miss because they're focused entirely on external changes. Day 3, if you need it, isn't about making something happen in your outer world. It's about proving to yourself that you no longer react to external circumstances for your sense of security and worth. This day becomes your confirmation that you've genuinely transformed, not evidence that the process has failed. Think about what this actually means. The old version of you would be frantically checking accounts, desperately looking for signs that something was working, measuring progress like a scientist monitoring an experiment. But here you are, maintaining your wealthy identity even when there's no external proof to support it. This is profound growth, not failure. What you can't see with your physical eyes is that the moment you assumed your new, wealthy state 2 days ago, your old poverty consciousness began crumbling from the inside out. The foundation of lack and struggle that used to define your relationship with money is literally shaking apart, even though the external structure might still appear intact for now. This is how consciousness works. Internal transformation always precedes external manifestation. The wealthy reality you're creating exists. First in your awareness, your expectations, your assumptions. Then, like a building that's been gutted from the inside while maintaining its facade, your external world begins the process of reconstruction to match your new internal blueprint. During this invisible phase, forces are aligning behind the scenes that you may never fully understand. People are making decisions that will affect you. Opportunities are developing in distant places. Resources are shifting. Systems are reorganizing. All of this movement is happening in response to your new energetic signal, but none of it is visible yet because it's still in the formation stage. Your persistence during this period is what actually speeds up the manifestation process. Every time you choose to maintain your wealthy feeling instead of panicking about the lack of evidence, you're sending a stronger, clearer signal about what you expect. Every moment you remain loyal to your new identity instead of reverting to old patterns, you're accelerating the reorganization of your external world. The test of appearances isn't designed to frustrate you. It's designed to solidify your transformation. It's ensuring that when wealth does show up in your physical reality, you're genuinely ready to receive it and maintain it, because you've proven you can feel wealthy without needing external validation. Now, I want to reveal what happens when you successfully navigate this crucial period, because this is where the real magic begins to unfold, and your entire life starts shifting in ways you never anticipated. Write in the comments, "I am growing through this process." Something extraordinary happens when you successfully navigate that test of appearances and remain steadfast in your wealthy identity. There comes a pivotal moment when your internal feeling of wealth becomes more real, more solid, more trustworthy than the external facts your eyes are showing you. This is the true point of shift where everything changes, because once your wealthy feeling carries more weight than your current circumstances, those facts begin reorganizing themselves to match your new vibrational signature. It's like switching from being a passenger who reacts to where the vehicle is going to becoming the driver who determines the destination. Your wealthy feeling stops being something you're trying to maintain despite evidence to the contrary, and becomes the foundation from which you operate. The external world stops being your reference point for how you should feel, and starts becoming the canvas on which your internal reality gets painted. This transformation in the hierarchy of what you consider real versus what you consider temporary is what separates those who create lasting abundance from those who continue struggling with money their entire lives. When your assumption of wealth feels more natural than your current bank balance, when your expectation of receiving feels more normal than your history of lack, that's when the physical world has no choice but to conform to your new internal blueprint. What's fascinating is that wealth doesn't always announce its arrival with fanfare and dramatic gestures. More often than not, it begins showing up in silence, in whispers, in subtle energetic shifts that you might not even notice at first. The energetic transformation always precedes the material manifestation, sometimes by days, sometimes by weeks, but it always comes first. You might start noticing that conversations flow differently when money comes up. Opportunities begin presenting themselves through casual interactions. People start mentioning resources or connections that could benefit you. Doors that were previously closed start showing small cracks of opening. These aren't coincidences. They're the first external reflections of your internal transformation starting to organize reality around your new wealthy identity. The shift often begins so subtly that your logical mind might dismiss it entirely. A friend mentions a side project that could use your skills. Someone asks if you know anyone who does what you do. A conversation at coffee leads to an unexpected connection. These seemingly small moments are actually wealth starting to flow toward you, but it's arriving on whispers rather than through dramatic announcements. Your job during this phase is to remain sensitive to these subtle movements while maintaining your wealthy identity, regardless of how slowly or quietly things seem to be shifting. The universe is responding to your new signal, but it's doing so in ways that feel natural, organic, and perfectly timed rather than forced or miraculous. Now I want to show you exactly how to recognize these early signs of wealth manifestation, because learning to see the invisible movements will strengthen your faith and accelerate the entire process. Write in the comments, "I am open to subtle abundance." Learning to recognize these subtle movements of wealth toward you becomes crucial during day 3, because this is when your new identity faces its most rigorous examination. Day 3 isn't just about maintaining your wealthy feeling anymore. It's about proving that you've fundamentally stopped reacting to external circumstances for your sense of security and self-worth. Your ability to sustain wealthy energy despite unchanged appearances becomes the ultimate demonstration that genuine transformation has occurred. Most people fail this test because they're still secretly monitoring their environment for validation. They're maintaining their wealthy identity conditionally, waiting for some external sign that they're on the right track before they fully commit. But day 3 demands unconditional loyalty to your new self-concept, regardless of what feedback the world is currently providing. This is where Florence Scovel Shinn's most profound teaching becomes essential for your breakthrough. She discovered that you must claim yourself to be that which you desire to be and that you shall be. Notice the precision of her language here. This isn't about trying to become wealthy, hoping you'll feel abundant, or waiting for circumstances to improve so you can finally embrace your wealthy identity. This is about claiming it completely right now as a fact of your existence. When you claim something, you're not requesting it or negotiating for it. You're declaring ownership. You're stating definitively that this identity belongs to you, not because you've earned it through external achievements, but because you've chosen it consciously and completely. This level of certainty creates what I call an identity lock, a state where your wealthy self-concept becomes so solid that external fluctuations can't shake it. The claiming process requires you to stop treating wealth like something outside yourself that you're trying to attract, and start treating it like an intrinsic part of who you are. You don't claim someone else's identity. You can only claim what's authentically yours. And Florence Scovel Shinn understood that wealth, abundance, and financial security are natural expressions of consciousness when it's not blocked by limiting beliefs and fearful assumptions. This shift from seeking to claiming changes your entire energetic signature. Seekers are always slightly desperate, always looking outside themselves for fulfillment. But those who have claimed their wealthy identity carry themselves with quiet certainty. They don't need to convince anyone, including themselves, because they know who they are at the deepest level. The test of day 3 becomes whether you can maintain this claimed identity when there's absolutely no external evidence supporting it. Can you walk with the same confidence? Can you make decisions from the same abundance mindset? Can you expect the same level of support from life? This consistency under pressure is what transforms temporary inspiration into permanent identity shift. Now, let me show you what happens once you've successfully passed this identity test, because this is where your entire life begins reorganizing itself around your new wealthy self-concept. Write in the comments, "I claim my wealthy identity completely." Once you've successfully claimed your wealthy identity and passed the test of maintaining it despite unchanged appearances, something profound shifts in how you relate to the entire manifestation process. You move from the exhausting state of waiting to the peaceful state of receiving. And this transition changes absolutely everything about how wealth flows into your life. Understanding this distinction is crucial because most people spend their entire lives in the waiting mode without even realizing it. Waiting carries tension, doubt, and a constant undercurrent of fear. When you're waiting for money to show up, you're continuously questioning whether your efforts are working, measuring progress against timelines, and interpreting every delay as potential evidence that you're doing something wrong. But receiving is completely different. Receiving is pure presence and trust. It's knowing with absolute certainty that the door is open and wealth is flowing through, even if you can't see the physical evidence yet. There's no anxiety, no desperate checking, no need for constant confirmation. You've moved into a state of quiet assurance where you simply know that abundance is your natural state and money flows to you as naturally as breathing. This transformation from waiting to receiving represents the completion of the process Florence Scovel Shinn spent her entire life teaching. She never instructed her students to hustle harder, search more desperately, or implement complex strategies for attracting wealth. Her entire methodology centered around one simple but profound principle. Assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled and persist in that assumption until it hardens into fact. What makes this approach so powerful is that it removes all the effort and strain from manifestation. You're no longer trying to make something happen or forcing circumstances to bend to your will. You've simply assumed a new identity so completely that receiving wealth feels natural, expected, normal. You're not attracting money from a place of lack. You're allowing it to flow to you from a place of abundance. The persistence Florence Scovel Shinn spoke about isn't the desperate clinging of someone, afraid their manifestation won't work. It's the quiet consistency of someone who knows exactly who they are and refuses to be shaken from that knowing, regardless of temporary appearances. This kind of persistence feels effortless because you're not fighting against anything. You're simply maintaining alignment with your true nature. Your wealthy identity has become so natural that you stop thinking about manifestation as something you do and start experiencing it as something you are. Wealth isn't something outside yourself that you're trying to attract. It's an expression of your consciousness that flows through you automatically. Now, I want to show you what this natural receiving state looks like in everyday life, because understanding the practical expression of this transformation will help you recognize when you've fully stepped into your new identity. Write in the comments, "I am naturally receiving abundance." When you've successfully moved into this natural receiving state, you begin to understand that what you've been experiencing isn't magic or some mystical phenomenon. It's universal law operating as predictably and consistently as gravity. When your inner wealthy state becomes genuinely consistent, not forced or performed, but naturally integrated into who you are, the outer world has no choice but to conform to this new internal reality. This is where the real revelation happens. You realize that feeling wealthy inside and then seeing wealth appear outside isn't some special manifestation technique, it's simply how consciousness works. The feeling becomes normal inside your awareness first, and then it becomes visible in your external experience. This sequence is as reliable as planting a seed and watching it grow, as natural as turning on a light switch and expecting illumination. Most people have this relationship backwards their entire lives. They wait for external wealth to appear before they allow themselves to feel wealthy. But this approach violates the fundamental law of consciousness. Internal states always precede external conditions. Your feelings don't react to your circumstances. Your feelings create your circumstances. Once you truly understand this principle, You stop trying to manipulate external conditions and start focusing entirely on maintaining the internal states that naturally produce the external results you desire. This understanding completely transforms your relationship with life itself. You stop being a victim of circumstances and become the conscious creator of your experience. You realize that you are the cause, not the effect. The world around you, including your financial situation, is simply responding to the signal you've been broadcasting through your dominant feelings, beliefs, and assumptions. The wealth you desire isn't something you need to chase, earn, or prove yourself worthy of receiving. It's something that already belongs to you because abundance is your natural state. When you're not blocking it with limiting beliefs and fearful assumptions. This entire journey has been about removing the barriers you've unconsciously placed between yourself and your natural prosperity. This message, this entire process, serves as a reminder of who you really are beneath all the conditioned beliefs about money, success, and what you deserve. You are not someone who struggles with finances. You are not someone who has to fight for every dollar. You are not someone who needs to prove their worthiness to receive abundance. You are consciousness itself, expressing through a physical form, and consciousness is inherently abundant, creative, and infinitely resourceful. The wealth you've been seeking has been seeking you just as intensely, waiting for you to remove the barriers and allow the natural flow. Now, let me show you exactly how to maintain this understanding permanently, because the real transformation happens when this becomes your default way of relating to money for the rest of your life. Write in the comments, "I remember my abundant nature." Now that you understand this process completely, you've essentially received the same teaching that transformed countless lives through Florence Scovel Shinn's work over a century ago. The simplicity of it, feeling wealthy first, claiming your abundant identity, persisting through the test of appearances, these aren't just techniques you've learned. They're revelations about how consciousness actually operates and how you can consciously direct your life experience. If you made it this far, you're clearly someone who's ready for real transformation, not just surface-level inspiration. The fact that you stayed with me through this entire journey tells me you're serious about changing your relationship with money forever. And because of that commitment, I'd love to keep sharing these kinds of deep, practical insights with you. Consider subscribing to this channel, not just to support what we're building here, but because this type of content, these real, applicable truths about consciousness and manifestation, deserves a space where it can reach people who are genuinely ready to apply it. Every video I create is designed to give you another piece of this puzzle, another layer of understanding that can accelerate your transformation. If this entire